Everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back to you here with an article from the Free Press dated Saturday, or that's actually today's date. Never mind. I've done that before on this website where I've misrepresented the date, and I do not want to subscribe right now. It is, stop. It's from August 21st. There we go. There's the right date. Because this is when I'm actually recording this video. You'll see it probably a couple of days after I recorded. But anyway, the article says, how long can Kamala Harris avoid the press? And isn't that the question here? I think on Ben Shapiro's show on Friday, he said it had been 35 days since she was essentially anointed, not the DNC stuff, but just when people were saying, oh yeah, she's going to be absolutely the nominee, and they made her the nominee. Like, it's been 35 days, and she hasn't had any questions from the press. So it says, the vice president thinks that joy can get her to the White House. We have our doubts, yes. I'm not cutting that cough out. So let's get into it, because no, joy cannot just get you to the White House. It says, it has been a month since Vice President Kamala Harris became the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee. And the glorious month it's been for Democrats, with an energized party, large enthusiastic crowds, and adoring press coverage. Our next president brings the joy, said Tim Walz, her vice presidential choice, at a rally in Detroit. Tim Walz comes across to me like, I kept thinking he's like the wacky inflatable thing from Family Guy. Like, go look that up. It'll probably auto-populate in YouTube, but that's what he comes across to me as, like, every time he comes out for something. It says, but with all the kumbaya, despite fears of a 1968 reprise, the Dems have put on a mostly drama-free show in Chicago. Harris has avoided saying a single substantive thing, either about her record as vice president or the kind of policy she hopes to enact if she is elected. Her speeches have been heavy on the rhetoric and light on the substance. Most notable of all is that she has yet to give either a press conference or an interview, not even for a hagiographic profile in Time magazine. Yeah, I don't know if anybody saw that, but Time put out this, like, just, oh my God, it's Kamala, holy but Jesus, oh my God. And, like, they didn't actually interview her for an article about her. So, good job, Time magazine. Way to go with the propaganda. So it says, what is Kamala Harris afraid of? Well, people probably finding out that she's a communist and all of the asinine policies that come with that. It says the reasons for Harris's evasion of the press are her own, but we think she has two chief motivations. First, she understands that without having to answer tough questions, she never has to worry about straying from her message. She doesn't have a message, but okay. The second is that Harris doesn't want to answer direct questions about her record and her plans for the future because both are lacking, as I was saying. This is take last Friday, for instance, when Harris held a rally in North Carolina where she unveiled her economic plan. The event was supposed to mark the beginning of her policy agenda for the first 100 days. Harris promised rallygoers that she would usher in an opportunity economy where everyone can compete and have a real chance to succeed. You mean, like, right now, if you guys weren't importing millions of illegal immigrants? There's an economy where everyone, regardless of who they are, where they start, has an opportunity to build wealth for themselves and their children. Again, you mean, like, right now, if you guys weren't importing illegal immigrants, we'd have that. So it says, good vibes, until you hear how she plans to do it, by setting price controls, an idea that betrays a below-average understanding of how the economy works. And just an FYI, when Javier Milei in Argentina won his presidential election, he removed price controls, and their economy skyrocketed. Okay, just go look at what removing the price controls did, and just understand that if you put them in place, the exact opposite of what you're reading about he did will happen. Okay, it's not good, let's just say that. So the Washington Post editorial board, not a group you can accuse of carrying water for Republicans, said that instead of delivering a substantial plan, Harris has squandered the moment on populist gimmicks. So she's lost already the Washington Post, of all places, okay? This former Obama chief economic advisor Jason Furman told the New York Times that his biggest hope for the economic ideas Harris laid out in that speech is that it ends up being a lot of rhetoric and no reality. So she's also lost a former Obama guy as well. So good job, Kamala, coming out firing and just shooting blanks. You're a Star Wars stormtrooper at this point. You're throwing stuff out there and not hitting anything. So this is not sensible policy, Furman said. There's no upside here, and there is some downside. I'd change that some to a crap load of downside. So that's not exactly a ringing endorsement from one of the economic policy gurus of the Democratic Party. Says Harris has offered no meaningful response to these criticisms. Says for more on this, read Neil Ferguson's column, The Barbenheimer Election. And we're not going to link to that now, but you can see it is right here, and go ahead and read it if you like to. It says Harris's policy deficiencies become hard to ignore, even for a loyal legacy press. Her evasions may turn more costly. Her challenger for the presidency, former President Donald Trump, appears to love nothing more than sitting down for long interviews. Yes, that's true. Says he most recently had an hour-long conversation with comedian Theo Vaughn, though the viral clip from the podcast was about cocaine addiction, not tax policy. And I like that Trump can sit down with anybody and just talk about whatever, and he's totally comfortable doing it. And Theo Vaughn talks to everybody from what I've seen. I don't listen to his podcast or anything, but I know who he is, and I've seen him talk to basically everybody, so there's nothing wrong with that at all. Says a chat with a comedian isn't exactly a sit-down with the Wall Street Journal, but Trump has also held a number of press conferences recently. They were typical of Trump, unscripted, rambling, hyperbolic. But there is no doubt where he stands on immigration, trade, and a host of other issues that are important to Americans. No rule requires Harris to hold a press conference or sit for an interview between today and Election Day. With candidates now able to get their message across via social media, Harris can talk directly to voters. But the electorate is entitled to know how she plans to govern, not to mention how she responds to critics of her time as vice president. With 75 days until the election, the Harris campaign has yet to post a single policy page on its website. Maybe, in the end, she thinks that joy alone can get her across the finish line. Or maybe she believes the press and its commissars will do the job for her, or do her job for her, which I think is exactly what is going to happen. Says, such a whiny brat. Poor widow reporter can't get the access he wants, but so representative of so much of the press. Longtime journalism professor Jeff Jarvis chastised The Independent's Andrew Feinberg. Feinberg had the nerve to notice that print reporters were being barred from the floor at the DNC. Says, as her campaign surrogate, Kevin Schroff, is it supposed to be Kevin and they just decided we're going to tragedy this name, or is it really Kevin? I'm just curious. Let me know if anybody actually knows how to pronounce it. As I've said many times, I do not like mispronouncing people's names, and I've never seen this before. So, starting over, it says, as her campaign surrogate, Kevin Schroff told ABC News this week, the more details you share, the more policies get picked apart. But what Kamala is saying is she trusts journalists to explain these policies and our values to folks. When this happens, it will be successful for Democrats. And says that's called saying the quiet part out loud. Yeah. So she's basically counting on the press to do her work for her, which I'm sure they will absolutely do. So what do you guys think about this? Like, how long do you think Kamala Harris can avoid the press? Do you think she's going to do it or be successful at doing it all the way up until the election? Or do you think maybe there's some way that Trump in any of their debates could get her to be like, I guess, interrogate her or get her to say something, like reverse interrogation to get her to actually slip up on something. So what do you think is going to happen there? How long do you think she can avoid the press? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.